Let me ask you a direct question, and I want you to answer honestly, even if it stinks a little. How many times have you thought your financial problems would be solved if you just earned a little more? How many times have you looked at your paycheck and told yourself the problem isn't you, isn't your decisions, isn't your organization, it's simply the amount that comes in every month? And now I'm going to ask you another question that might be even more uncomfortable. If earning more really solved it, why do so many people who get raises continue living in fear of running out of money? I want you to notice how seductive this idea is, because it seems logical. If little comes in, there's not enough. If more comes in, there's extra. But real life almost never works with that simple math. Real life has emotions, habits, pressure, exhaustion, comparison, impulses, unexpected events, and one very powerful thing that almost nobody admits. When you earn more, you don't just gain money, you also gain new expectations about who you should be and how you should live. Maybe you've already experienced this. You get a raise, or sweet jobs, or start a side hustle. And in the first few days, you feel that relief. It's like someone lifted a weight off your chest. You think, now it's happening. You think you'll finally be able to breathe. You think you're going to get organized, pay off what you owe, save a little, get out of that constant squeeze. You picture yourself making better choices. You picture yourself calmer. But a few weeks later, the feeling comes back. The tightness comes back. The anxiety returns. And it doesn't return because you don't know how or because you're just bad with money. It comes back because the root problem wasn't only the amount. The problem was the structure that didn't exist before and still doesn't exist now. There's a paradox almost nobody talks about. When you earn very little, your brain goes into survival mode. It's simple and brutal. Pay bills, buy food, survive the month. You don't have much to protect because there's barely anything left over. It's distressing, it's exhausting, sometimes it's humiliating, but it's straightforward. But when you start earning a little more, something different happens. Now you have something to lose. You start building a small cushion, a bit of comfort, a little margin, and along with that, a new fear is born. The fear of losing what you've gained. That fear is quiet, and that's why it's dangerous. It doesn't show up like a bill on the table. It shows up as constant tension, as that feeling that any unexpected event could unravel everything. You stop thinking only about surviving and start thinking about maintaining. And maintaining takes mental energy. It requires vigilance. It requires control. It requires constant awareness. And this is where many people get lost, because no one prepares you for the psychological weight of having something to lose. Earning more doesn't fix it, because the problem is rarely just the amount coming in. The problem is how you handle what comes in. It's how money flows in and out without you really noticing. It's how your lifestyle grows along with your income almost automatically without planning. It's in the small, nearly invisible decisions you make, everyday decisions that seem harmless on their own, but together build a prison. Think about the last time you got a raise. You said you would save more, but you ended up taking on something new, a new monthly payment, a better plan, a subscription, a phone upgrade, an improvement here, another there. Nothing outrageous, nothing too irresponsible in your mind. And that's exactly what makes it deceptive, because it's not one giant mistake that destroys your financial life. It's a sequence of small now I can moments that pile up until you realize you're carrying a life more expensive than your peace of mind can handle. This doesn't happen because you're weak or irresponsible. It happens because the human brain hates the feeling of scarcity. When more money comes in, it interprets it as permission to relieve accumulated tension. You've spent months or years holding back. You've spent a long time saying no, postponing things, feeling limited, feeling stuck. When there's breathing room, you want to compensate. You want to live a little better. You want to feel like you're moving forward. You want to feel like all that effort was worth it. But without realizing it, you trade one scarcity for another. Before, you lacked money. Now you lack margin. Before, you said, I don't have it. Now you say, I have it. But if something happens, it gets complicated. The insecurity changes outfits, but it still lives inside you. Only now it comes with a new demand. You have to sustain an upgraded version of your life, and that leaves you feeling like you can't fail. Here's a truth that may be uncomfortable, but once it sinks in, it can change your life. For many people, the financial problem isn't income, it's structure. It's the absence of a system. It's living on improvisation. It's deciding every single month all over again how to use your money instead of having clear rules. When there's no structure, any raise turns into spending expansion. And spending expansion never brings peace. It only increases responsibility and increases the number of things you have to keep running. Maybe you're thinking, of course, earning more helps. And it does. Money matters. Money creates options. Money gives access. Money removes some immediate fears. The point isn't to deny that. The point is that income alone doesn't sustain financial peace. Financial peace isn't the amount of money, it's predictability, control, clarity. It's knowing where you stand, knowing what you can and can't do, knowing what happens if something goes off track. You can earn 3,000 and be in chaos. You can earn 10,000 and be in chaos. You can earn 20,000 and still be afraid of losing everything, because the fear isn't in the number, it's in the lack of foundation. It's in the feeling that anything could destabilize your world. It's in the fact that behind your paycheck, there's no solid ground supporting your decisions. Let me show you a common scenario, because it happens every day in real life, and people don't even realize they're stepping into the same script. Someone starts earning more and decides to move to a better place. Nothing extreme, just a little better. They justify it by saying they need more comfort now, that they deserve it, that it will make life easier, that it's an investment in well-being. The car payment goes up a little, food quality improves, outings increase, clothes get slightly more expensive, not to show off, but to feel like they're evolving. But every small upgrade locks in a new cost. And fixed costs are dangerous because they turn into obligations. And monthly obligations turn into pressure. The pressure shows up the day you realize there's no more room. You're paying everything, meeting every commitment, maintaining everything, but you're not at peace. Then imagine something unexpected happens. A layoff, a health issue, an unplanned expense, a family member who needs help, a repair you didn't anticipate. What was comfortable becomes suffocating. And you ask yourself, with a mix of anger and confusion, how can I be earning more and still feel this vulnerable? This is where many people enter a dangerous cycle. Instead of reorganizing, they think they need to earn even more. More income, more hours, more effort, more burnout, and they enter an endless race because every time income goes up, the standard goes up. Every time the standard goes up, the cost goes up. Every time the cost goes up, the pressure rises. And the saddest part is that the person is always tired, always running, always trying, but never reaching that place of peace they imagined money would bring. The question almost nobody asks is, when do I stop and organize the foundation? When do I accept that it's not just about earning, it's about sustaining? When do I stop placing my peace of mind on the shoulders of the next raise and start building real ground? There's a huge difference between increasing income and building structure. Increasing income is effort. It's leaving the house, working more, seeking opportunities, accepting challenges, studying, putting yourself out there. Building structure is a decision. It's choosing that part of your money will not be touched. It's creating clear limits. It's automating what can be automated. It's removing from willpower the responsibility of saving your financial life. Because willpower gets tired, motivation fades. That's not pessimism, it's reality. Some days you feel strong. Some days you're exhausted. Some days you want to be disciplined. Some days you just want to reward yourself. If your financial life depends on your emotional state, it will fluctuate. And when it fluctuates, anxiety grows. When there's no system, every choice becomes a mental battle. Buy or don't buy. Finance it or not. Upgrade or not. Order takeout or cook. Accept the invitation or stay home. That constant battle drains energy. And when your energy runs out, you choose what's easiest. And what's easiest almost always costs more in the long run. Because what's easiest gives you immediate relief, not lasting peace. Earning more without a system is like pouring more water into a bucket with holes. You feel like you're getting more, but the level never rises enough to bring security. And that creates frustration because you start thinking you're the problem, that you don't know how to manage, that you weren't made for this, that you lack discipline. But most of the time, the issue isn't discipline, it's the absence of architecture. It's the lack of a way to organize money that works even when you're tired. Maybe what hurts most is admitting that you worked harder, tried harder, grew on, still feel afraid. It feels unfair. It feels like the world is wrong. And in some ways, it is. Because no one teaches you how to deal with money emotionally. They teach you how to earn. They teach you how to pursue promotions. They teach you to study for a better position. But they don't teach you what to do when the money finally comes in, or how to protect your mind from slipping back into panic mode. You find yourself in a strange place. You're not the person who had nothing anymore, but you're also not someone who feels secure. You're in the middle, and the middle is uncomfortable because you have something to lose but not enough to feel safe. You've tasted a slightly better life, so going backward feels terrifying. And that creates a constant fear of regression. This is where modern anxiety lives. The anxiety of someone who works, gets paid, pays bills, improves their life a bit, and still wakes up in the middle of the night thinking about money, still doing mental math in the shower, still opening the banking app multiple times a week to check the balance not out of curiosity, but out of a need for control, as if looking repeatedly could prevent something bad from happening, still afraid that any small mistake could turn into a big problem. Earning more doesn't solve that. Organization does. Clarity does. Limits do. And limits aren't punishment, limits are protection. Limits, are you telling yourself, I will not build a life that holds me hostage? But before we talk about real solutions, you need to understand what's happening inside you. For your brain, money isn't just a number on a screen. It's security, protection, status, comparison, validation, freedom. And when you start earning more, you activate new emotional layers. You begin comparing yourself to people who earn similar amounts. You start wanting what they have. You start feeling like you should be at another level now. That comparison doesn't have to be explicit. Sometimes no one pressures you. No one says anything. But you see it, you hear it, you notice it. You enter environments where people do different things. You have new coworkers with more expensive habits. You spend time with people who treat certain expenses as normal. And without realizing it, you adjust to feel like you belong. Then the invisible expenses appear. Not outrageous spending, but small adjustments to keep up. A slightly better restaurant, a trip on installments, a course that maybe wasn't necessary right now, a subscription everyone has, an upgrade that was about time. The problem isn't doing one thing or another. The problem is doing it without a foundation. Because when you do it without a foundation, the emotional bill comes later. You buy, and in the moment, you feel relief. You feel rewarded. You feel like you're living. But soon after, the tension comes. The feeling that you've narrowed your margin. The fear that the month will feel tight. The silent guilt no one sees but you feel. Without realizing it, you build a life that consumes everything you earn. And when everything you earn is already committed, the amount doesn't matter, you return to the same emotional place as before. Tension. The difference is that now the tension is more sophisticated. You're not in the red, but you hee on the edge. And living on the edge is just as stressful as living in debt. Because your brain doesn't relax when it knows anything could push you down. Maybe you've always believed the next raise would be the turning point. That the next contract would fix everything. That once you reached a certain number, everything would feel lighter. But that's a mirage. Because what weighs on you isn't just how much is missing it, how little room you have for error. How many times have you hit a goal you thought would change your life, and shortly after, everything felt the same? That happens because you increased your income but didn't change your relationship with money. You kept deciding impulsively. You kept operating without clear rules. You kept reacting instead of planning. And as long as your financial life is based on reaction, it will always depend on the next raise. Depending on the next raise means living in a permanent state of expectation, always believing the solution is in the future, never in the present. But the present is where decisions happen. There's a shift few people make, and that's why few people achieve peace, even while earning more. It's the shift from thinking I need to earn more to get organized to thinking I need to get organized so any amount makes sense. When you create structure, something changes. Even if you're not earning what you'd like yet, you start feeling in control. And control reduces anxiety, not because everything is guaranteed, but because you know exactly where you stand. And that clarity has enormous power because it moves money out of the realm of fear and into the realm of strategy. Deep down, what you want isn't just to earn more. You want to sleep peacefully. You want to stop feeling that knot in your stomach when the credit card statement closes. You don't want to depend on luck. You don't want to feel embarrassed about not having savings. You want to stop comparing yourself. You want to stop feeling like your entire life is a race with no finish line. Now, I want you to pause for a second and be honest with yourself. If tomorrow your salary doubled, are you sure you would save the difference? Or would you already start imagining improvements you could make? This question isn't an accusation, it's awareness. Because as long as you believe the problem is only the amount, you won't touch the structure. And as long as you don't touch the structure, any amount will be insufficient. Now, dive with me into a point almost no one faces head on because it hurts to admit. Often you don't just want to earn more out of necessity. You want to earn more to relieve an internal feeling of inadequacy. And that changes everything. Because when money becomes emotional medicine, it's never enough. You can increase the amount, but the feeling keeps demanding more. Think about it. How many times have you felt behind compared to someone, a coworker who upgraded their car, a friend who traveled, a relative who bought an apartment? Even if you don't say it out loud, it affects you. Not because you want to show off, but because you want to feel like you're evolving too. You want to feel like you're not falling behind. So you associate evolution with higher income and higher income with a higher standard of living. But your standard rises faster than your financial awareness. You start telling yourself you deserve better things. And you do deserve them. The issue isn't deserving, it's timing. It's foundation. It's structure. When you upgrade your lifestyle before consolidating your base, you build a life that looks good on the outside but is fragile on the inside. And that creates a very specific kind of anxiety. Maintenance anxiety. You're not desperate, but you're not at peace either. You live trying to maintain what you've achieved. You avoid checking your balance after certain purchases. You do mental math to make sure it's still working. You start depending on next month being equal to or better than the last. And then another silent mistake appears. You start counting on money that hasn't come yet. You count on overtime that may not happen. You count on commissions that can fluctuate. You count on side work that depends on energy you're not even sure you'll have. And when income fluctuates, life tightens because the standard is fixed but income is variable. This is extremely common. And it's not a lack of intelligence. It's a lack of awareness of the psychological effect of higher income. When you earn less, you adapt it to scarcity. Now that you earn more, you adapt to expansion. The human brain adapts quickly to any level. What once felt like luxury becomes normal. What once felt impossible becomes standard. And once it becomes standard, it stops generating satisfaction. That's why earning more feels great at first. But then everything returns to normal because your brain recalibrates what is enough. If you don't build conscious limits, your standard will always grow until it hits your income ceiling. And when that happens, you return to the same emotional place as before. Worry only now with more to protect and more fear of falling. Now, I want to touch on an even more sensitive part. There's a silent guilt in people who earn more and still feel insecure. You think, I shouldn't be complaining? There are people who earn less. I should be able to handle this. And that guilt keeps you from talking about it. It makes you swallow the anxiety. It makes you pretend everything is fine. But inside, you feel like you're constantly spinning plates, like any slip could bring everything down. That's the difference between earning more and being financially structured. Structure doesn't depend only on amount, it depends on decisions. The decision to build savings before expanding your lifestyle. The decision to separate money as soon as it comes in, not from what's left over. The decision to live slightly below what you could afford, even as income rises. That's not living poorly, it's living with margin. And margin is freedom. Without margin, you become hostage to your own standard of living. Hostage to your obligations. Hostage to the image you've built of yourself. Now, I'm going to show you a very common mistake that keeps people trapped in this cycle. They think, when I reach X amount, then I'll get organized. But when they reach that amount, life has already grown along with it. So the goalpost moves. Now, I need a little more. And that line never ends because you're trying to organize from what's left over. And leftovers are a consequence, not a cause. You need to reverse the logic. Organization comes before leftovers. First, you create rules. Then you let your lifestyle grow. First, you create protection. Then you improve comfort. But most people do the opposite. They improve comfort first and then try to chase protection. And it almost never works because protection requires consistent disciplining. Discipline is much harder when your standard is already high and you're used to certain things. Now, pay attention to this. Your financial problem isn't just about money, it's about lack of clarity. Maybe you don't know exactly how much you need to live peacefully. Maybe you don't know exactly how much your life costs without excess. Maybe you don't know how much truly remains. And when you lack clarity, any raise feels like a solution, but it's only temporary relief. It's like putting a bandage on a pain that comes from within. And here comes an important shift. You don't need to earn a lot to start changing this dynamic. You need to create a minimum system, a simple system, automatic, one that doesn't depend on your motivation. For example, defining a fixed amount that leaves the day money comes in and goes to savings before anything else. Not what's left over, what comes in. That completely changes the game because you stop negotiating with yourself every month. You remove emotion from the decision. And when you remove emotion, you reduce anxiety. Another point almost nobody talks about is that when you don't have savings, every expense becomes a threat. And when every expense feels like a threat, money dominates your thoughts. You live thinking about how to avoid the next problem. You avoid looking at numbers so you don't feel pain. You live on alert. But when you have even a small emergency fund, something changes in your brain. You move out of survival mode and into strategy mode. You start deciding more calmly. You evaluate better. You say no with more confidence. And that has nothing to do with earning a lot. It has to do with having a base. Earning more can accelerate the process, but it doesn't replace the process. And maybe that's the hardest part to accept because it's more comfortable to believe the problem is your salary amount than to admit it's the structure of your financial life. It's easier to chase raises than to look at your habits. It's easier to blame the cost of living than to admit your standard rose with your income. But the good news is that once you understand this, something shifts. You stop chasing income alone and start building stability. And stability brings something no raise alone can bring peace of mind. Now let me ask you something directly. If you keep just trying to earn more without changing structure, where will you be in 5 years? Probably earning more, probably living better, and probably with the same fear of losing everything. But if you start structuring today even without a raise in 5 years, you could be in a completely different emotional place. Calmer, more aware, more in control. Not because you got rich, but because you stopped depending on the next raise just to breathe. And when you stop depending on the next raise to breathe, you begin to see money differently. You start understanding that the real goal isn't a pretty number, it's space. It's margin. It's flexibility. It's a life that doesn't fall apart because you got a flat tire or because one month was worse than another. Now we're going to enter the part that truly changes the game, but you need to come with an open mind because what I'm about to say sounds too simple to solve a problem you've felt for years. The mistake isn't that you earn little or that you earn more. The mistake is living without a minimum financial foundation. And that foundation isn't a magic number. It's not a specific dollar amount. It's a basic structure that supports any income. First, you need to stop organizing your financial life based on what's left over. That's the root of almost everything. If you pay everything, live the whole month. And only at the end see if there's something left to save. You're telling your brain that saving is optional. And what's optional always loses to what's immediate. Your brain is wired to prioritize now. A bill due tomorrow hurts more than savings for the future. A purchase urge now feels more urgent than security 6 months from now. That's not a character flaw, it's human wiring. The shift begins when you decide that savings stop being what's left over and become the first bill you pay. It doesn't matter if it's small. What matters is that it's automatic. When money comes in, a portion leaves immediately to a separate place. No negotiation. No, this month I can't. No, depending on your mood. That simple move does something powerful. It creates an invisible limit. If before you had $1,000 available, now you have 900, and your brain adapts to 900. It doesn't feel like it lost 100. It simply starts living within the new frame. That's how you build margin without feeling punished. The problem with high fixed costs is that they stiffen your life. When most of your money is already committed from the start, you have no flexibility. If income drops, you can't adjust at the same speed. If a new opportunity appears, you can't take risks. If something unexpected happens, you panic because the month already starts heavy. Earning more with high fixed costs only increases risk because you build a life that requires that level of income to keep existing. And that generates constant fear. Fear of losing your job, fear of getting sick, fear of anything slipping out of control. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine you earn X, but you organize your life as if you earn a little less than X, not to punish yourself. But because you decided to create breathing room, that breathing room becomes protection. Protection becomes calm. Calm becomes better decisions. And better decisions completely change your financial future. See how the order reverses. It's not earning more to feel calm. It's becoming structured to handle any amount better. There's a huge difference between growth and uncontrolled expansion. Growth strengthens the base. Expansion without a base increases risk. Most people, when they earn more, expand before strengthening. And then they spend years trying to sustain something that could have been built with far more peace. You don't need a perfect life to feel calm. You need predictability. You need to know how much comes in, how much goes out, and how much is protected. Financial anxiety grows in uncertainty. When you don't know if it will work out, your brain imagines the worst case scenario. When you don't know how much truly remains, your mind stays on permanent alert. Clarity reduces fear, and clarity doesn't depend on a high salary. It depends on honest organization. Maybe you're using the desire to earn more as a way to postpone difficult decisions, deciding to cut something that became a habit, deciding to say no to a payment plan, deciding to keep your current standard even if you could raise it. It's more comfortable to believe when I earn more, I'll fix it than to adjust now. But every month that passes without adjustment is another month of accumulated anxiety. There's a turning point that has nothing to do with salary, it has to do with identity. It's when you decide you want to be someone who is financially stable, not just someone who earns more. When that decision happens, your choices change. You stop asking, can I afford this? And start asking, does this preserve my margin? That question changes everything. Stability is built on 3 simple and very clear pillars. First, savings before expansion. Second, fixed costs below your maximum limit. Third, automatic decisions instead of emotional ones. When those 3 pillars exist, any raise becomes a real advantage. It strengthens you instead of pressuring you. Now, think honestly. If you keep living at the ceiling of your income, always spending everything you earn, what will happen when income fluctuates? It becomes a crisis. But if you learn to live slightly below what you earn, any fluctuation becomes an adjustment, not a disaster, and that changes your posture toward life. Financial peace doesn't begin when you earn a lot. It begins when you stop spending everything. It's simple, not easy, but simple. And what transforms your life isn't complexity, it's consistency. Imagine that 1 year from now you look back and realize you've built solid savings, your costs are under control, and you no longer depend on the next raise just to breathe. That changes your posture. It changes your confidence. It changes how you negotiate salary. It changes your courage to pursue better opportunities. It even changes how you consume, because you stop buying to relieve tension and start buying with intention. Earning more is great. Keep pursuing growth. Keep developing yourself, but stop treating it as the only solution, because as long as you treat raises like a magic fix, you'll keep chasing something that never delivers complete peace. Peace comes from structure. Money only amplifies what's already there. If there's disorganization, it expands it. If there's a foundation, it strengthens it. So let me close with a question that truly matters. Do you want to keep depending on the next raise to feel secure? Or do you want to start building a foundation that works at any income level? If you understand that the problem isn't just earning more, but organizing better, then this video has done its job. Now, I want you to turn this into a decision. Leave your like so more people stop falling into the trap of believing salary alone solves everything. Subscribe to the channel, because here we talk about money in a realistic, practical, and emotionally honest way. And comment the word structure. So I know you watched until the end and are ready to stop depending only on raises and start building real stability.